Welcome back. COVID-19 is wreaking havoc on the mental and emotional states of so many of us, leading to uneasy feelings of anxiety and depression. And the struggle is real. Darby Fox is a child and adolescent family therapist, and she wants to give us strategies to feel safer, lower anxiety, and combat feelings of depression and helplessness. Welcome to the show, Darby.
Thank you for having me.
Well, there is so much fallout from the shutdowns, places closing down, then they're open, now they're closing again. So many of us are faced with all kinds of issues, whether it be related to money or making school decisions for our kids. So inevitably, many people are feeling anxious. Talk about the triggers caused by the uncertainty with coronavirus.
It's a perfect storm for anxiety because what triggers anxiety is uncertainty. So there's probably not a time that we can remember, most of us, probably maybe an older generation, that there's been so much uncertainty. So that's a perfect trigger to make you anxious and worry about what's going to happen next because we lose control. So from parents down to kids, we're not sure what's next, then we don't know how to respond or how to act.
Well, how have shelter-in-place, stay-at-home orders, how have they been affecting our mental health?
It's actually had a pretty powerful effect on mental health. We've seen a lot of people become quite depressed or increasingly anxious because, again, when we don't know what is expected of us or how to act, then it just automatically increases, and not knowing the end to it. That's been a big thing. If we knew that we had to shelter in place for 3 weeks and it would be okay, or even if it were 6 weeks and we would be okay, then people could do it much more easily.
Right, we don't have that light at the end of the tunnel right now.
No, and we thought we had the light, but it's maybe not the light.
Right. And I know in my situation, my boys, they're really affected by the lockdowns. Can you talk about children being affected across the board?
Sure. It's always with children. You want to be pretty mindful and not group everybody together. You want to talk about their ages. So I don't know what age your boys are, but younger kids, it's very hard because you don't want to scare them and give them too much information, but all they know is all of a sudden they can't run around and do all the activities and see their friends. And they really do love school for the social connection, and that's a really important part of their development. So that's really hard on the younger ones. And then as we get to adolescence, it becomes a little depressing because they're losing contact with all the things they've known, their sports, their social groups, and they start to question, like, what am I going to do? And we often hear, I'm bored, but that quickly turns into a little bit more concerning mental illness stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely been hearing a lot of the I'm bored, and my kids, they're 7 and 8, by the way, really missing out on the sports. And I am too, because I'm used to shuttling them from one place and having things to look forward to. How do we manage all this anxiety with these constant changes and not having that end in sight?
Well, there are two really important pieces to that. So as the parent, you want to make sure that they're not picking up too much on your anxiety, because kids, their language is not words. Ours is, but what they'll do is notice a change in you. You might be crankier or snappier, or they can see maybe you're sad, you're talking to people on the phone. They pick that all up. So you want to be really careful to manage your anxiety and keep that in check away from them. And then the next best steps are really to be quite honest and say, depending on a 7 or 8-year-old, you tell them, look, we're not exactly sure how this is going to end, but I do know you're going to be safe and you're going to be okay. So we're going to do the best we can and make a plan. And we'll break it into pieces that we can handle. We'll have activities we know we can do that are safe. We'll start to be able to do a little more piece by piece, and let's make a plan. With kids, it's often great to put it on a calendar, because as soon as we bring it out and put it down so it's kind of a tactile thing, then that reduces a lot of anxiety.
Well, I like that idea a lot. And anxiety, that's one thing, but beyond that, others are feeling depressed and helpless. It's pretty serious. How can we help the loved one combat depression?
So it can take a very serious toll with depression or anxiety, because if you're a person that is clinically prone to that to a very high level, the brain is pre-wired to pick up on any of that. It's kind of a protective mechanism. So that's going to escalate depression or anxiety to a serious level. And I think one thing we need to do is, aside from being there as a resource, encouraging them to keep moving. Okay, it is safe to be outside now. Really important for a depressed person to keep moving little step by step. What can you do instead of focusing on what they can't do or what they're afraid of? Similar with anxiety, a little different mechanism. But I think it's very important that you also consider, do they need extra help? This has been a time where mental health professionals are working around the clock. It's a really important piece, and we can give suggestions and help and stay close to those people. And that's a very important piece.
All right, Darby Fox, I want to thank you for joining us and offering these tips and insight about lowering anxiety.
Thank you for having me.
This interview involves commercial content. The products and services featured appear as paid advertising.